Good morning, listeners. A very good morning to you. Let me just start by apologizing. Yours truly has once again got a cold. And I think the fact that I went for a run a couple of days ago and got caught in the rain has been the undoing of me. So yet again, I apologize for any groggy voice or sound effects. Listeners, we had a request to talk about emotions. One's ability to understand, use, and manage emotions in a positive way, and how to improve that ability to do all those things. And it's such a great question, such a great topic, because we are emotional creatures. With everything that artificial intelligence can do, it cannot replace our human emotions. And so it is a very, I want to use the word primitive, guidance system that we have available to us to guide us and steer us either in the right way or in the wrong way. Warren Bennis wrote that emotional intelligence is more than any other factor, even more than IQ and expertise responsible for success in the workplace. In fact, our emotional intelligence accounts for 85 to 90% of success. And he says IQ is a threshold competence, which means I need a certain skill and a certain level of intelligence. It's sort of the baseline to get a particular job or a particular position. But it does not make you a star. It does not make you a leader, and it does not propel you in a positive way through life. And that is where emotional intelligence is such a vital skill. And again, I use the word skill because it's something we can learn to acquire. Let me say what is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, manage, and communicate our own emotions and use this awareness to influence how we behave, how we treat interpersonal relationships. It gives us empathy and understanding. Okay, so I just want to throw in here assertiveness. For those of you who don't know, assertiveness is not dominance or aggression. Assertiveness means I can get what I want without trampling on the rights of others. And I think that dovetails very well with emotional intelligence, because if I'm aware of my emotions and I have empathy and understanding for you and your emotions, I can navigate my way through difficult situations or difficult conversations without trampling on your rights, without offending people, and without alienating people. And that goes in the workplace and in personal relationships. I had a gentleman with me earlier this year who had been through a divorce and came in and expressed how much he disliked his ex and etc., but it was all emotionally charged statements. And when we unpacked it, and I said, well, what happened? What has she done to get you huffing and puffing? It was really, once we unpacked it, it was really so unimportant. But his immediate emotion was, that woman, that so-and-so, I would just like to throttle her, etc. And his emotions led to that impulse reaction and no emotional regulation. So emotional intelligence is really considered a vital skill, both personally and professionally, and it helps us to build relationships, to communicate constructively, and to retain our composure under pressure. Now, that in itself tells us so much, because, as we've discussed before, if I can recognize that I'm getting really worked up here and I'm getting very agitated, and I can recognize it and I can take a deep breath and I can say, I'm going to park that. I recognize it, but I'm going to park it. And I'm going to ask myself, what is my desired outcome? And I'm going to think about the logical steps that I need to take to get that desired outcome. Instead of ranting and raving, storming out, slamming the door, perhaps throwing in a couple of choice words, etc., which has now broken down a relationship. Respect has been lost between the parties concerned. Feelings have been hurt. And we know that often that can lead to the permanent breakdown of a relationship, again, personal and professional. If you've ever been in the workplace with someone who likes to steamroller his or her way over other people, then you know what I'm talking about. So let's see. There are 4 key components which we refer to as the 4 pillars of emotional intelligence. And here's where you can really prick up your ears and listen to what they are. The first one is self-awareness. As I've just said, it involves your ability to recognize your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors and understand how they impact others. Take the example of, let's say I work in an office environment. I have 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 co-workers, and I've had a bad start to my day. Either my baby was up all night, or I've had a tiff with my husband, or the refuse wasn't collected, and I'm in a foul mood, or I got cut off in the traffic, and now I storm into the office, slam my bag down, and everybody's like, what's wrong with her? Well, we won't talk to her. Look at her. She's in a mood. And immediately, I have negatively impacted the entire office just because I'm ticked off about something that happened to me. Whereas if I'm self-aware and I think, well, I'm really ticked off, let's say I had a tiff with my husband and on top of it got cut off in the traffic, and I say, well, that's all good and well. It really is not going to matter in 3 weeks' time. So I'm going to park it. I'm going to let it wash over me. I've recognized that it's irritated me, but I'm not going to entertain it. Take a deep breath, walk into your office with a smile and focus on something positive. That is the self-awareness that helps you to have positive relationships, personally and professionally. You can now start managing your hot buttons. So if I know that traffic is a problem for me, or whatever it is in your life that irritates you, then you know. And then you need to be aware of it, recognize it without judgment, and park it. So I know this is something that really irritates me, and try and find the funny side. Try and let it wash over you and say, is it really that important? How is this, if I entertain this? Because you know what we say, what we focus on expands. So the more I'm going to talk about the vehicle that cut me off, and someone else says, yes, that happened to me, and someone else says, yes, these jolly drivers are so inconsistent. Before you know it, we've had an hour's discussion. It's taken on a life of its own about poor driving in traffic. Instead of let it go, let it go. Then the next one is self-management. That is about impulse control and emotional regulations. And they need to align with our values. And we have spoken about our values before. Again, if you'd like me to recap, please just send in a request and I will gladly do it. Practically, this helps us learn to manage our reactions and get things done regardless of how challenging the situation is. So if you are in a team, you are working on a project, and there is a particularly challenging situation, maybe there's someone in the team that you find it difficult to work with, you can park that and say, I'm going to focus on the objectives of the team. And a team is also a family. Remember, your family is also your team. So you may, with Christmas and the holidays coming up, you may have a particular family member, not immediate family, hopefully, but a mother-in-law or a cousin that really gets under your skin. But instead of reacting to it, you are going to have impulse control, you're going to have emotional regulation, and you're going to say, it's holidays, it is Christmas, the family's coming together, and I'm going to control myself, and I'm going to be pleasant, and I'm going to let whatever he or she does wash over me. And the more you do that, the more you find your own sweet spot of being comfortable with people that you do not necessarily enjoy. Because as I've always said, we don't like everyone we meet any more than everyone who meets me likes me. Hard as that is to believe. I'm joking. Not everyone we meet likes us or we them, and therefore, Mango, joining me here, and therefore, we have to be able to emotionally regulate and have our reactions, our impulse control, well practiced and well oiled. Then the last one is relationship management, and this encompasses building rapport, handling conflict management, encouraging effective teamwork, and improving our influencing and communication skills. Now remember, I said that team could be the team in the office, your co-workers, it could be your family. Families are also a team. We all have our roles, we all have our place in this team. So we need to manage those relationships, and we cannot say, well, if Susie changes her behavior, then I will change mine, because remember, you're only putting lipstick on the mirror. You need to acquire the skill of relationship management so that you can manage all relationships and you don't wait for others to change so you can behave better, because that is conditional living and it makes you dependent on how others behave and you give your power away. Now, so remember, it was self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. How can we increase our emotional intelligence? Because it's a skill, it's something we acquire. We can definitely develop our emotional intelligence skill to help us perform our best, and again, in personal and professional relationships. Emotional intelligence is now considered one of the most desirable interpersonal skills in the workplace. So once again, listener, you can see how important it is to be aware of, control your emotions, others' emotions, relationship management. It is a top sought after skill, and it's being valued by a lot of employers over technical ability. Because if you are technically sound, but you're a pain in the rear, you cause so much disharmony in the workplace that it's not worth it. There are other people who are as good as you, or if not better technically. But if you have the technical ability, whether it is a typing skill, a mechanic, we're talking about a hard skill here, an accountant, whatever it is that hard skill is. And in addition to that, you are emotionally intelligent, those 4 pillars that we referred to. Then you create harmony in the workplace, you increase productivity, you get the best out of the people around you. And again, I remember that applies to your family. People want to do things for you. People want to do things for you and with you. Whereas the emotionally unintelligent, unregulated person is someone we tend to avoid. So the listener who asked, I hope you can see how valuable this topic and this question of yours is, because it affects from the moment you open your eyes to the moment you close your eyes tonight. Everything in between, your interaction with the person, the cashier in the bank, in the shop, to how you manage traffic irritations, to how you manage your young person, your toddler spilling his or her cornflakes all over you at the breakfast table, and the workplace challenges. It's all governed and determined by how emotionally intelligent you are. So, emotional intelligence in the workplace is now being recognized as contributing to better decision-making, obviously improved communications, higher rates of retention. You don't have the staff owner if you're not such a pain in the rear as a boss. And of course, productivity. There was a very interesting study done at Yale University, and they found that they had the 2 groups of people who had a leader who was emotionally intelligent and one who wasn't. And the difference was utterly astounding. The researchers found that among employees with supervisors who showed little emotional intelligence, 70% of their primary feelings about work were negative. I hate this job. I hate the people around me. I really don't want to go to work. I just have to do it so I can pay the bills. All those things. Whereas the group who had an emotionally intelligent leader, their words, 2/3 of their words describing their work and their workplace was positive. They looked forward to going to work. They went the extra mile, etc., etc. And as I say, the same applies to your relationships. If your husband or wife always coming home in a bad mood from work because work is just such a challenge, we kind of think, oh, he'll be home just now, she'll be home just now, and she will probably be in a mood again, and he's probably just going to want to be left alone, and so on. And so we start drifting apart, relationships start fading, and then, of course, they're the more obvious aggressive and things of, you never do this for me. And if you unpack it, it's probably not never. It's probably he or she admitted on 1 or 2 occasions. If you unpack things and you stick to the facts, then you will actually see how important or trivial the situation is. So, 4 practical tips to improve your emotional intelligence in daily life. 1, have regular check-ins. During the course of the day, just find a moment to sit quietly and consciously think about, how am I feeling? What am I thinking? What judgment have I attached to them? And notice your emotional states, their triggers, as we've said, and that will help you build self-awareness. So if you, by 12 o'clock, just take that moment and say, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? How have I responded? Then you can say, oh, well, that happened and I stayed calm and I was empathetic and I tried to see the other person's point of view. I did well. And you don't lose control. You don't have that, well, to heck with you. The ego doesn't kick in. Where we, I'm right and you're wrong and you're a pain and I'm always greeting you and you never respond. Those are all ego-based emotional statements. So have a regular check-in with yourself. Listen actively to conversation. So rather than just waiting for your turn to speak and let the other person finish so you can get your say in, listen to the other person. What are they really saying? Ask a question. Repeat what they've said. Look for the perspective the other person is coming from. And try and find a middle ground if there is some sort of conflicting idea or suggestions. Not just, well, I'm right and you're always suggesting nonsense. Just listen. Be empathetic and try and understand. Try to see situations from the other person's point of view. That social awareness and relationship management skill will serve you in the workplace when you have a tiff with your significant other. If you just stop for a moment and say, let me listen to what he or she is saying and how they're feeling and where they're coming from. That makes a huge difference. Our daily interactions need practice. Like anything, listeners, practice. Practice to be in control, to recognize your emotions, but not to act on them. As we've said, decisions or utterances that are fueled by heightened emotions generally lead to more unhappiness than happiness. So you say things you didn't mean and you did things you really didn't want to, and now you've got to go and apologize and grovel and do a lot of crisis management, etc., etc. Rather avoid all that by taking a breath, thinking. I'm trying to think who wrote that. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space resides your power. So it's a stimulus. Before I respond, let me just take a breath. Let me just think, what is my desired outcome? And what logical steps will get me there without trampling on the rights of the other person or people? Consciously consider the feelings of others in your everyday interactions. It's not just about me. Okay? in each case, imagine that person's emotional state and respond with kindness and understanding. I didn't say agreement, I said understanding. Okay, so ways to improve your emotional intelligence, your emotions, regular check-ins with yourself. In conversations, listen actively. Use daily interactions to practice empathy and practice pausing before reacting. That is so important. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that you got quite a bit out of that. If you would like more information or would like me to expand on something, please keep those requests flowing in and start the day with your emotions in check, with your impulse control in check, and with, as I say, emotional regulation. I hope you have a wonderful day, a happy day, a peaceful day, and a harmonious day.
The radio station you can't live without. This is your radio.
This is South Coast Radio.